Well, let's get more reaction on this afternoon's budget expectations. Joining us now live from our Cape Town studios is Old Mutual Investment Group's Chief Economist, Mr. Johann Els. Mr. Els, good morning and thanks for your time this morning. I mean, overall, I'm seeing comments saying it's going to be a very tough balancing act that Mr. Mboweni is going to have to strike this afternoon when he lays out exactly what the budget should look like.
Yeah, you're right. It's tough this time around with very weak economic growth and a budget deficit that keeps on hanging around 4%. That means we keep on adding to our debt, and that's what the ratings agencies don't like. We never get the budget deficit under real control because economic growth is so weak. So we need to stimulate economic growth on the one hand, but we also need to get more tax revenue and or cut back on spending to get the deficit under control. And all this is very difficult, especially when, as we know, the minister has to find some money to support the state-owned enterprises, especially Eskom and also SAA. So there's little money to go around for everything that we need to do.
Well, tax-wise, where could he go to try and get extra money? I mean, last year already we saw the unpopular, controversial VAT increase.
Yes, you're right. So there's no VAT increase this year, although our VAT rates in South Africa are still relatively low compared to our trading partner countries out there and other emerging markets. So it should probably need to go up further in coming years, but not this year. In terms of personal income tax, we're already overtaxed. We don't want to raise the company tax rate because then we'll kill off further probable employment opportunities and economic growth. So it's very difficult this time around. There's virtually no big untapped tax sources out there. So we should expect the normal ones, but they're small in the overall scheme of things. And these are the sin taxes when we smoke or drink, or fuel levies. So all of those. The one area that he could potentially do without actually raising tax rates is not making allowance for inflation pushing us up into higher tax bands, the sort of fiscal drag. Don't give relief for that. And so there's a lot of small little things that he gets some money from, but I don't think we're going to get big tax changes this time around. It's also an election year. The economy's weak. We don't want to kill the economy too much. So I think the emphasis needs to be more on expenditure control.
Expenditure control, election year, economy not growing well, but the trade unions are looking for some light at the end of the tunnel in terms of job creation. Last week we saw COSATU taking to the streets and sending a message to Tito Mboweni to say, we hope you're going to do something for us in terms of job creation. Possibly, how can he maneuver that?
Yeah, that's a difficult one because the Minister of Finance hasn't got any room in the budget. The Eskom financing that needs to be done, I don't see anything really concrete coming out of today's budget in terms of job creation or even policies to change economic growth, because we need economic growth at a higher level and a more sustainable level to create jobs. And that type of policy change I don't see coming before the elections. I think after the elections we should look forward to government coming with a whole set of structural policy adjustments in order to get economic growth going, and through that higher and more sustainable growth will eventually make some inroads into the big unemployment problem that we have. But for this afternoon I don't see a lot of hope for policy change in terms of getting jobs going soon.
And you've mentioned that he's going to have to come up with a salvage plan for a number of state-owned enterprises. You mentioned SAA, there's 4 others, but the big one in terms of what's been in the news is, of course, Eskom with his huge debt. I mean, where will the government try and get the money from? I mean, how can they take over some of those repayment obligations or bailout or come up with the bailouts? I mean, so many bailouts have happened in the past and no results has been seen.
Yeah, this is difficult because I doubt very much whether there's room to take on Eskom's debt onto government's balance sheet at this point, because Moody's simply will not accept that debt transfer without a concrete and very strong restructuring plan at Eskom. And that restructuring plan needs to include significant cost cuts. So I don't see that happening in today's budget, the debt transfer, but there might be some cash injection for Eskom. over the past fiscal year, government has been great in terms of controlling expenditure. So there might be some room in allowing for some monies, maybe 15, maybe 20 billion rand, to go to Eskom as a cash injection. I think any further transfer of debt will probably have to wait till after the elections, when there's a concrete cost-cutting plan at Eskom, and then we can consider transferring of debt without Moody's getting too upset and downgrading us at that stage.
Mr. Els, thank you very much. He's the chief economist. That's Johann Els of Old Mutual Investment Group, just giving some of his insights and views of what we could expect to come out of Tito Mbowene's maiden budget speech in Parliament this afternoon. Thank you very much, sir. Now,